London, 1922. The city streets still smelled of cordite and grief. The war to end all wars had ended, but it left behind a cultural fracture so deep that the cathedrals of Europe could not fill the resulting void. T.S. Eliot wrote The Wasteland into this wreckage. The traditional reading of this poem identifies it as an obituary for Western civilization. It describes a world of the living dead, where commuters shuffle across London Bridge with their eyes fixed on their feet, trapped in a cycle of aimless labor. That sense of decay is mirrored in the text itself. Readers encounter a fractured timeline, abrupt scene changes, and a dizzying chorus of different voices that seem to offer no coherent narrative. Eliot's background suggests a specific logic behind this chaos. He didn't just borrow phrases from India, he employed a Sanskrit framework to structure the entire reading experience. This structure functions as a bridge between the ruins of the West and the banks of the Ganges. The poem uses ancient Hindu philosophy to frame the despair it describes. During his time at Harvard, Eliot steeped himself in Sanskrit and the Upanishads. He studied the Vedas and the Bhagavad Gita under Charles Rockwell Lanman, learning the language of the East to confront the West's spiritual miasma. This education introduced him to the concept of Maya, the idea that the material world is a fragmented illusion. The Upanishads describe the soul as two birds on a tree. One flits between branches, eating sweet and bitter fruit, while the other simply watches, silent and still. Tiresias functions as the watching bird of the poem. Eliot's own notes confirm that Tiresias is the consciousness that contains all other characters. He is the observer watching his own past incarnations enact the same patterns of desire and suffering across the unreal cities of history. The fragmentation of the poem is a formal enactment of this condition. It is a simulation of a mind trapped in Maya, perceiving only the shifting, broken surfaces of reality while searching for the unity beneath. In the section titled A Game of Chess, we overhear a conversation about Lil, a woman who has taken pills to abort a pregnancy. To a Western reader, this is a scene of sordid realism and poverty. In the Hindu framework Eliot studied, marriage and childbirth are not merely social choices, but samskaras, sacred rituals binding the individual to a cosmic order. Childbirth is viewed as a duty to the ancestors, ensuring the continuation of the wheel of life. By treating pregnancy as a mechanical inconvenience to be managed with pills, Lil treats the sacred as something disposable. Her actions reflect a world where the cosmic order has been replaced by the mechanical and the mundane. This is why the wasteland is barren. The drought is a direct result of humanity severing its ties to these sacred structures, leaving only a heap of broken images. Eliot shifts the location of the cure away from the ruins of Europe. The spiritual solution comes from the banks of the Ganges and the silence of the Himalayas, the home of the gods. The poem's climax, What the Thunder Said, uses the syllables da, 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 lifted directly from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. In this text, the Lord of Creation teaches his children through these sounds, each group interpreting the thunder according to their specific vice. The first command is datta, to give. Western critics historically read Eliot's description of a moment's surrender as a confession of a momentary lapse into lust, or a craven surrender to a tyranny of the blood. Eliot's study under Charles Lanman emphasized datta as a total, irrevocable gift of the self, symbolized by pouring water that can never be regathered. The speaker is not confessing a sin, he is mourning a failure to surrender himself fully to another human or to the divine. This Sanskrit context reveals a speaker who recognizes the path to liberation, but laments his own age of prudence that prevented him from taking the first step. The poem ends with a threefold chant, Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Eliot defines this in his notes as the peace which passeth understanding. In Hindu ritual, Shanti is never chanted alone. It must be preceded by Om, representing cosmic unity. Without Om, Shanti lacks power. Eliot knew this. There is no Om in the wasteland. He removes it. His world is broken beyond the capacity for unity. By leaving the chant incomplete, Eliot presents Shanti not as a realized state of peace, but as a fragile hope voiced from within the wreckage. By integrating these Eastern philosophies, Eliot expanded the literary tradition of the West. He looked beyond European canonical sources to find a language capable of addressing a modern crisis. When the Western tradition appeared exhausted after the war, Eliot turned to the Upanishads to find a framework for moral life. He sought out a seriousness about suffering and impermanence found lacking in his own time. This engagement makes The Wasteland a document of spiritual navigation. It uses the thunder of the Upanishads to judge the bankruptcy of the modern city, while pointing toward the possibility of liberation. Eliot concludes his poem with a Sanskrit benediction, because the English language offered no word adequate to the task of describing a peace that lies beyond human understanding.